Welcome to Worldview Matters, discussing controversial issues, discerning current events, defending biblical Christianity. No topic off limits. And now, here's your host, David Fiorazzo.
What part of your life is Jesus not Lord over? We're going to answer that question with the help of my friend, Pastor Paul Blair, in just a minute. But I want to remind you guys, this is the last time I'll mention this on Worldview Matters, because tonight I'm going to be speaking in Oshkosh at Calvary Sunrise Church, 6:30 p.m., responding to and overcoming today's attacks on believers in the biblical worldview. There will be a Q&A at around 7:15 p.m. tonight, so that's at 6:30. It's in Oshkosh, Calvary Sunrise Church. If you're in Northeast Wisconsin, I'd love to see you. Now, very important that we talk about this again. We're trying to get pastors engaged, informed, and just up to speed on everything that's happening, not just in the government, but in our schools, in corporations, through Hollywood, in the media. And we're trying to get them informed to understand there's a worldview, there's an agenda, and it is demonic behind what they're doing and what the left is doing. And pastors, a lot of them don't have time to keep up with it. That's why Liberty Pastors is so important. So I want to bring in Paul Blair, pastor of Fairview Baptist Church, Edmond, Oklahoma. He is the founder of LibertyPastors.com, Liberty Pastors Training Camp. And Paul, we've had you on before and just recently, but there's an event coming up in Milwaukee we need to talk about. Welcome. Good to see you, brother. Thank you for coming back.
David, thank you for having me on. It's always a joy to be on the air with you. And I had failed to recognize that you are in the heart of Packer country. I should have changed my backdrop behind me, but as we said a moment ago, nobody in Packer land can be upset with the Bears because we haven't beaten you guys in like 2 decades. So Come on. I mean, in fact, I think it was back about when I was playing the last time we won. But anyway. Hopefully they can overlook that and recognize our unity in Christ and the fact that we're patriotic Americans.
Amen. Christ unifies us, right? That's who we identify with. And then all the other things. Packers.
That's right.
But I was going to say, who's the big guy, number 68, with Blair on the back of his jersey?
Yeah, that was a much younger, much more in shape version of me. I'm now at the 61-year-old cancer survivor, too many surgeries to remember phase of my life. So we just look at that every now and then for fond memories of what I once was.
So I asked Paul to come on because he's going to be in Milwaukee in just a matter of weeks, the early May 6th through 9 at Liberty Pastors. There's a training camp, a boot camp for pastors in Northeast Wisconsin, any part of the country. If you want to travel to this, you are most welcome. You can even cross the line, come over from Illinois. You're welcome. You're most welcome, pastor, a man of God, a teacher, preacher. We need you because our country needs you. And Paul, this is what we're talking about today. First of all, I am equipped because I was at a couple Liberty Pastors boot camps. I am up to speed. This is what you get when you're there. It's a thick binder with all kinds of information on everything from Marxism to civil government, biblical principles, where the church went wrong, critical race theory, all kinds of Black Lives Matter, all different things that we need to know about what's going on in the schools and the culture. But Paul, give us an overview of Liberty Pastors, and then we'll talk more about Milwaukee.
Well, David, I appreciate you showing that notebook because this is really a valuable retreat for pastors. And first of all, we have it heavily subsidized by some Christian businessmen that really recognize where we are as a country and our decline. Let's face it, I never thought I'd live to see a day where we would be not worried about teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic. We'd be more concerned with making sure our children think properly about trans issues. I mean, we literally have stepped into the insane world. But we value pastors. Obviously, my father was a bivocational pastor. I love pastors. Because I grew up in a pastor's home, I didn't want to be one. But later in life, I was actually at the age of 37 when God called me into full-time ministry. Now I've been doing this as a pastor for 25 years. And I know the work that goes into it. So there's a number of things we do with these camps. One, it's only $99. The rest of it has been subsidized. We're going to be at the Renaissance Hotel there in Milwaukee. It's a beautiful hotel, virtually brand new. And as I understand, you look around, it's in a very popular area, lots of restaurants and shopping. So we want this to be a 3 days of R&R, a second honeymoon for a pastor and his wife. But we have an opening night dinner. We have breakfast and lunch that we provide every day. So 3 nights accommodations and 6 meals are covered for the pastor and his spouse. Then we turn them loose about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They can have some free time, go sightseeing, go to the pool, go shopping, and go have a nice date night at dinner, whatever. So it's $99 for 3 days of a getaway. Great time to develop relationships with other pastors in your area or strengthen existing relationships. And then because of the subsidy, we ask pastors to give us 20 hours of their time. And as you saw with the notebook, this is really meaty information. Yep. And this is our 19th one of these camps now. We've had some 2,000 pastors go through the training. Nothing is required of them. At the end of the camp, if they want to continue to work with us, it's all voluntary. So no strings attached. But I have not had a single pastor that has gone through the camp and say, wow, that wasn't worth my time. I mean, these guys, the term that I hear most from pastors is, you've removed the scales from my eyes. You've transformed my ministry.
Wow.
And there's a boatload of sermon material, as you know, David. And of course, all of our PowerPoint slides, all the PDFs, all of this is there, and it's available for pastors to use at their discretion. I mean, I don't care if a pastor wants to preach straight out of our notebooks and just preach our sermons verbatim, or if they want to use that as resource material and craft their own. You're welcome to do whatever you'd like to do. But as you said a while ago, we have accepted this idea in the United States of America. In most churches, we have the idea that there are certain subjects that we can't talk about in church. Well, what I ask pastors is this. I say, what part of your life is Jesus not the Lord over? As I understand it, he's supposed to be the Lord over all of our lives, not just the Lord of Sunday mornings. So the reality is, if we are discipling our people properly, their business ethics should be different than the lost world. Their work regimen should be different. Their families should look different. Their marriage relationships should look different. Our sexual proclivities should be governed by a biblical worldview. And quite frankly, our politics, or how we view this realm that we call civil government that God established, what is the responsibility of civil government as opposed to what God entrusted to the individual in self-government, or to the family and family government, or to the church and church government? The civil government's not supposed to be the answer to everything. And it's important that we, as disciple makers, disciple our flocks into what God's biblical worldview is for every area of life. Most of us went to seminary being taught that there are certain things that were off topic that you can't talk about in church.
Jeez.
Well, basically, I challenge pastors to write out a list of every area of their life that Jesus is not supposed to be the Lord over. And those are the topics that they're not supposed to talk about in church. But again, and I say that with a smile on my face and tongue in cheek, we all know better. We all know that Jesus isn't just the Lord of our salvation or the Lord of our Sundays. He's supposed to be the Lord of all of our lives. And as disciples of Jesus, we should be following Christ, i.e., a biblical worldview in everything we do. As the Apostle Paul said, whatever you do to the glory of God. Most pastors have never even considered this, but it's so obviously true and overwhelmingly true that, as I said earlier, the number one response I hear from pastor graduates is transformation. You have transformed my ministry. You've removed the scales from my eyes. So I invite anybody that's in the listening audience, if you're a pastor, sign up. You don't have to live in Wisconsin. I mean, we've got pastor graduates that have come from as far away as California to Massachusetts to Michigan to Florida and Texas. So any pastor is welcome to attend this camp in Wisconsin. Obviously, we're coming to Wisconsin, hopefully, to make it more easier for those in that region of the United States to attend if they want to drive over and can't fly. So we try to make it as easy as possible for pastors all over the country.
Was your recent training camp in Pennsylvania or Georgia?
Most recent one, we had a full house in Georgia. In fact, we had a standing room only. And I would encourage these guys, go ahead and sign up now. It's amazing how many pastors we will have called the last 2 or 3 days, hoping that there's a spot open, and there's not. But sign up now. We have lots of availability at this moment. Last one was in Georgia, and heavens, David, it was may have been our best yet.
Wow.
It was just well received. And those pastors in Georgia, much like the response we had in Michigan, have really rolled up their sleeves and gotten to work in their states. And
so,
if you look at our country right now, buddy, and I know we're going to talk about a few of these things, but even where we have deteriorated to now, of course, at the time of the signing of the Declaration, 98% of the inhabitants of the 13 states were Protestant. Now we still have 63% of Americans identify as Christian, and I mean identify with air quotes.
yes.
But look at our country. There's zero evidence that would convince anyone that we are Christian at any degree. So whatever we are as Christians or Christ followers, we've not been as effective as we should be.
Yes.
And quite frankly, I think that's because we've been taught to compartmentalize our faith and just live for Jesus on Sunday mornings and live like the world the other 6 days of the week.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about that because we have not been successful at being salt and light, preserving, influential, just, really being ambassadors for Christ. And the word politics doesn't simply mean affairs of the city. So we should be concerned. If we love our neighbors, we will be concerned if someone is trying to access their children with something that is demonic, and that's what's happening all across our country. But Paul, we didn't mention the speakers for the Milwaukee conference. Could you please run those down, or do you want me to list those off?
Well, we're going to have a special guest. First time that we've had David Barton with us, but Rick Green, of course, is part of our Remnant Alliance, and Rick and David work closely together. Both have been dear friends for a long time, but Rick cannot be with us in Wisconsin because of a scheduling conflict. So David Barton will be there with us. Of course, Bob McEwen, former congressman of Ohio, Matt Staver will be with us. We've got Alex Newman. Of course, you know Alex. You've had him on your show. Alex is a brilliant young Christian journalist and homeschool dad. Wonderful information. Alex is one of our most popular speakers. Curtis Bowers,
wow,
who did the documentaries, of course, on Marxism called Agenda and Agenda 2. Curtis will be with us. We got Pastor Stephen Broden out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Kevin Freeman, if you watch The Blaze, Kevin Freeman is an economist. He was formerly with Sir John Templeton. Kevin now has a show called The Economic War Room that's on The Blaze. So Alex and Kevin will be dealing with the topic of the Great Reset and central bank digital currency and some of the things that are trying to be forced upon us as the dollar is intentionally being devalued so that it can be replaced. And then, of course, Dran Reese from Salt Light Ministry. We'll have Dr. Rick Scarborough, great evangelist out of the Houston area. So, anyway, the schedule is still always being fine-tuned, but we have a great program set. Again, pastors will have a great opening night steak dinner and our opening presentations with David Barton will be speaking that night, as well as me. And then on day one, we literally start with class one, and every class is built upon what's learned in the prior class and sets the stage for what's going to be taught next in the following class. So literally it's designed to very quickly introduce pastors to thinking biblically about civil government and economics. And of course, the Bible has much to say about both. So it's not hard to do once we get it pointed out.
Amen. That's libertypastors.com. We'll be right back with Paul Blair. We're going to be talking about Democrats diss Christians, erase Easter, and attack the image of God. Plus, Governor Tony Evers in Wisconsin vetoed a bill that would protect girls and athletes. We'll be right back on Worldview Matters.
Introducing Patriot Mobile, the wireless carrier that stands with you. We are committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
Get free activation now with promo code DAVID. Friends, if you're listening via audio podcast, please help us out by leaving a 5-star review. It helps the show rise in the rankings. Also, we're looking for more sponsors. If you're interested, you can email us worldviewmatters@fpeusa.org or just go to the website worldviewmatters.tv. So Paul Blair, we'll get back to Milwaukee again, but since we're on the topic, Milwaukee needs Liberty pastors. Over at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, this story, a recent news headline, Tony Evers, the governor of Wisconsin, he vetoed a bill that was aimed at trans and non-binary athletes. What that means is a bill that would have banned transgender and, quote, gender non-conforming youth from participating on school athletic teams that align with their identity, not their biological sex. So his response, and I'll let you weigh in, Paul Blair, Evers said this type of legislation harms LGBTQ Wisconsinites and kids' mental health and threatens the safety and dignity of LGBTQ Wisconsinites and kids. And he also said, I will veto any bill that makes Wisconsin less safe and less inclusive. Go ahead, Paul. It's all yours.
Well, he's just as ungodly of an individual as I've ever heard from. I mean, when you think about this biblically, we recognize that God created us as he did. God created two sexual beings. He created Adam by design and Eve by design, with certain pleasure centers intentionally in certain locations. And according to Hebrews 13:4, God gave the gift of sexual intimacy to be enjoyed in holiness between a husband and his wife, period. Yeah. Anything outside of that is missing the mark. And then when you wander over into that behavior, which even violates nature itself, the homosexual behavior, then we're really missing the mark. So from a biblical standpoint, if I love someone, then I'm going to love them enough to kindly tell them the truth. And now we've got all these children that we have brainwashed into thinking that their stress or the anxiety that they're feeling. By the way, most of this anxiety has been because it's been forced upon all of us, especially over these last 3 or 4 years. But we've got these kids that are struggling and we're not allowed to help them. Now teachers are supposed to celebrate or feed fuel to the fire of what's troubling them by telling them that, oh, yes, you may be a boy born in a girl's body or a girl born in a boy's body. Well, the truth is that even those that go through with and have the surgery, once they get about a year past it, they recognize that this hasn't solved anything. It's actually just made life worse. And the suicide rate among that community is about 50%. Now, if anybody is a teacher or a counselor or a preacher, if we have a genuine concern for our fellow man, then we'll be willing to speak truth to them because we do have the right answer. And it's not that. And this mayor, quite frankly, one of the things we bring up, David, is, if I am a Christ follower, then my business ethics should glorify God. If I called myself a Christian, yet I cheated people in business or defrauded others or stole from my employees, well, I wouldn't be demonstrating Christ in how I conducted business. If I'm a Christian, I shouldn't be unfaithful to my wife or neglect to provide for my family. I mean, I think we can all very easily point to chapters and verse for instruction there. Well, the same thing is true for civil government. Ephesians 5:11, I believe it is, says, have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness. In fact, It doesn't just stop there. It says that we're supposed to reprove them and stand against them.
Expose them.
Well, so if you look at that word fellowship, it could actually be translated a party to or a part of, or I might say a member of a political party that advances the LGBT propaganda. Yeah. That advances abortion at all stages, including there's ideas to letting women abort the baby even 30 days after birth. in case they decide there's too much emotional stress and they can't handle it. That promote socialism, which is anti-biblical and is nothing but based upon covetousness and theft. You can't say I'm following Christ in my politics and be a part of a party that advocates all of that non-biblical, ungodly nonsense. And this governor should be ashamed of himself. Mm-hmm. I would, if I had a chance to meet Riley Gaines recently at a Council for National Policy meeting. What I didn't realize is that, the race where she had her trophy stolen from her, that wasn't even won by the man that was competing in the event. What's his name? His name is William something or other. I forget. That's his real name. Little Willie, I call him.
Yeah, it goes by Leah Thomas, right?
Yeah, Leah. Yeah, I'll call him Little Willie. That's actually probably more accurate. But he sits there and he tied the race. So he and Riley Gaines were competing in this women's event. This man, who is very mediocre in men's sports, decides to compete as a woman. And in the 200-meter free, they tied. It was a dead heat down to the 100th of a second. He didn't even win the race. It was a tie. But they gave him the trophy for the optics. Wow. You know what? If there was a man trying to, if I had a daughter, I've got a granddaughter now, so just wait about 15 years and you'll see me being arrested probably. But if a man's trying to get into my wife's dressing room or my granddaughter or my daughter's-in-law to reveal himself or to do anything improper, real men of God would drag him out by his ear and beat the daylights out of him. And I'm just amazed that this man sits there and he's defending LGBT. What about those women's rights to privacy and the rights to compete in sports? Everyone knows that men as a whole are just bigger and stronger. Therefore, we're going to be better athletes. You take the best team in the WNBA and compete against the NBA, and it's no contest.
Yeah.
You take the best team in best softball team out there and compete against even the Chicago Cubs, and it's no contest. So this is not like this is some new news. They know this is wrong, and hopefully the people in Wisconsin will vote this cat out the first chance that they get, because he is a disgrace not protecting our wives and daughters.
Thank you, Pastor Paul Blair. I brought it up just to remind everybody elections have consequences.
Yep.
And we have a big election coming up in November. But same topic, different story. What Joe Biden did for Easter Sunday, he called it the Transgender Day of Visibility. And of course, but they did put a little bunny in the logo of the White House. So at least they did that, which the bunny has nothing to do with Jesus or the resurrection. But that's how they said, okay, let's give that to Christians. But Paul, it's the rhetoric. They're winning people over by inclusive, and what they're blame shifting. The press secretary for the White House said the people that criticized Biden for doing that, she said they're seeking to divide and weaken our country with cruel, hateful, dishonest rhetoric. And I'm saying what the left is doing, they're accusing others of doing. And this is one of the tactics. Go ahead.
Absolutely. That's exactly what the Marxist strategy is, to project on you or make you defensive. I'm going to accuse you of what I'm actually doing. And that's exactly correct. The thing that's crazy, well, there's so many things that are crazy about this, David, but there's no such thing as trans. The idea of Transjordan was across Jordan, or transatlantic is across the Atlantic. If you are born a man, your DNA is going to always tell the truth on you. Mm-hmm. You could have everything cut off of you that can be cut off, yet you are still going to biologically be a man. Doesn't matter how you dress or what surgeries you have. So it's nonsense. There's no such thing. If you're born a woman, you are going to die a woman. You are going to be born or die exactly as God created you. 100 years from now, when they dig up your bones, the doctors will be able to look at it and say, nope, that's a woman's skeleton. Why? Because facts matter. So all of this nonsense is just that. There's no such thing as non-binary. I got news for you. I spent a lot of time in locker rooms in my younger days. and before I became a Christian was a little bit of a heathen. I can attest that there's only two genders. There are men and there are women. There's not a third option. And we need to be training our young Christian men to glorify God in their masculinity. And we need to be training our young Christian women to glorify God in their femininity as God created them. So this whole thing is nonsense, but it should be an insult to Christians. Because let's face it, if not for the resurrection, there would be no Christianity. So Amen. Christianity is not based nearly as much on philosophy as it is on fact.
Yeah.
Jesus said, an evil and adulterous generation seeks after a sign. I'm only going to give you one more. Just as Jonah was in the whale's belly for 3 days and 3 nights, so shall the Son of Man be in the heart of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. Jesus came out of the tomb on what we celebrate as Easter Sunday. Of course, you're right. The whole tie to eggs and the bunny is conflating Christianity with some of the pagan holidays under Constantine's reign. We conflated Ishtar with Resurrection Sunday.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, that is an important holiday. It's the most significant holiday in the Christian calendar. I guarantee you, Joe Biden wouldn't insult the Muslims by declaring transgender identification, whatever day on Ramadan or something like that.
Goodness. Can you imagine? Oh, gosh.
I wish he had the gall to do it. I'd like to see what happened.
No, but the question, we don't have enough time to answer the question. Why wouldn't they do that? But anyway, Paul, really quick, President Trump responded by saying Election Day this November will be referred to as Christian Visibility Day. And he's making fun of Biden saying the Trans Day of Visibility or whatever that is. I thought that was really interesting. Your quick thoughts on what Trump said.
We all have histories that we probably are ashamed of, and no doubt Trump's is from years ago. But let me tell you, I was not a Trump fan early on. I was a Cruz supporter. I learned to love Trump, not because of who he is, but what he did. Yes. He has been the president that's been most friendly towards pro-life and towards Christianity more than any other president that I have seen in my lifetime.
And Israel.
And I'm 61.
Yeah.
I'm 61. God bless Donald Trump.
Yep. And Israel too, by the way.
And Israel. That's exactly right.
Yeah. So elections have consequences. Again, pastors, you can get one of these binders, Liberty Pastors, coming to Milwaukee. It's, May 6th through the 9th.
May 6th through 9th. Yep.
Yeah. Friends, please get this podcast with Paul Blair. Please get this to your pastor. We need your pastor to be on board with this so we can get more people equipped to battle all the things that are going on. Our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but there's a lot of the warfare that we need to be a part of here as Christians in America and around the world. Paul Blair, God bless you, brother. Keep fighting the good fight.
Thank you, David. God bless you, buddy.
Thank you, brother. All right, guys. Again, libertypastors.com. And if you have any questions, give me a holler. And hopefully we'll see you tonight in Oshkosh. God bless you. And as always, keep speaking the truth about things that matter.